harnessed the harness.
Steve, harness!
It's wonderful.
Hi, Stephen. This is Clem Fandango. Can you hear me?
I'm doing way more than 20 people a day, that's for sure.
I do everything. I mean, I do you right now.
Hey, Nick.
Where's Nick?
I'm right here, dude.
Get over here, Nick.
Okay.
Nick, I think you did an amazing job.
I appreciate it.
Nick, you're the champion. Take it away.
If Nick and Steve would have been locked up with Andy Dufresne, he wouldn't have wanted to escape. These are just facts.
Hey, everybody, it's Tom Cruise. I'm the guy that's really against medication to improve mental health. What I'm not against to improve mental health is Nick and Steve and the vocal minority. I'm also not against doing an irresponsible flyby on the tower. But you already knew that. Enjoy the show.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Tom Scientology Cruise and Mr. Stuck in Your Way Cruise.
The original cult member. A lot of talk about cults nowadays. Tom Cruise was ahead of the curve on that one. So.
He really was. This is a cult everyone can get down with, really. It's the vocal minority with Nick and Steve. I guess we're not a cult because we let people say whatever they want.
Yeah, but if you want to send us money and pledge your loyalty to us, mailbox is open.
Wouldn't be a bad thing. We could use a little financial backing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I was just in Chicago, and the Church of Scientology is right next to my kid's dorm. Like literally like down and like over 5 feet. You know, we walked by this weekend and there's people in there. They have some movie playing that you're allowed to just go in and watch, which I assume is just indoctrination. But
of course,
I just crack up. The whole front window is lined with the L. Ron Hubbard Dianetics thing. And I just can't accept a religion that the guy just wrote the book like, what is it, 40 years ago, 50 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Needs to be a little more ancient, I feel. But.
You don't accept any religion, right?
No, not really.
So, yeah, I mean, you don't subscribe to those philosophies. I mean, it could be as dumb as all the rest or many of the rest. I think there's a couple hundred gods anyway, so. Yeah, sure.
Although, in fairness, I do often say that Star Wars, I feel, is the most close religion to how I feel. The light, the dark, the yin, the yang, all that stuff. And I suppose Star Wars is a little modern, too. But I'm not actually starting a religion on it, okay? I'm not showing up to the Church of George Lucas or anything, okay?
You're just a good person. And so am I. Hey, welcome to the show, The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve. See our socials. We've got a ton of them. Reddit. We've got TikTok, we've got YouTube, Threads,
Instagram, Threads, Twitter thing, Facebook, and it's all over. So, yeah, go find that. And, I know the countdown is on. Election day is coming up. So this episode, we're not going to talk about politics. We're just going to give you a little distraction from all of that.
I mean, you got to step back, dude. I mean, they have mental professionals all over TV right now. I don't know, in my therapy, I've talked about it the last 2 or 3 weeks of like, how do I get not only my head, but my heart out of this just for a quick breather from time to time. I don't know how to detach myself from it. So this is a great way to do it. Spend a little time learning about life and enjoying a fun conversation.
Yeah, I think the show does sort of reflect life. I mean, politics comes up with your partners, your friends, all that stuff, but hopefully it's not all you talk about, or I feel bad for you.
Hey, dude, if they mandated that, hey, let's go back, our social contract, let's go back to not talking about politics. If everyone could flip the switch, would you?
Well, that's a fairy tale thing you're proposing. I mean, if truly we banned talking about politics?
Not necessarily banned, but let's go back to just to the level of when we were kids, 5-10 years old, we still talked about it and saw it on the news, but we didn't talk about it openly with, just people on the street or sometimes even family or friends.
Yeah. Listen, if we could go back to the era where Dems and Republicans were sort of equally flawed, you can agree to disagree on a lot of things. If we could return to that era, then yes, I'd be fine with it. But that's definitely not the era we're in.
Yeah, like you said, I guess it's a little bit of a fairy tale, but it is important to take these little breaks, and we thank you for taking it with us here today, The Vocal Minority with Nick and Steve.
I was just traveling recently, and there was a lot of signs of getting older, maturity and wisdom. I got a kid in college now, and it's changing my perspective on the world, I will say.
This past year, dude, I mean, even if you didn't want to feel the tide pushing you forward in life, you would really don't have a choice. I mean, big things are happening in your life, I guess, like milestones to remind you, like, yeah, I am in a different area, place in my life.
Yeah, for sure. Constant reminders. My kids are getting older. One's in college, one's in high school, and a lot of people online are calling us old men, and I'm starting to embrace that in a positive way. I think we are full-grown men. I was just telling Kennedy, when I walk into like a 7-Eleven or something and I see young high school kids there, I still feel like they want to fight me or something, or like some fight could break out because we're just a bunch of young dudes that are going to clash. And I realize, like, I'm their freaking father at this point. I don't think they're coming after me. And I could see myself lecturing them like, hey, Junior, I'm older than your dad, so step down, please.
It's funny the stages you have that we all do in our minds, because I feel very similar so many times. And then my nephew, who's 14 years old, will remind me very quickly, like, dude, you're old as dust. Like, compared to me, compared to what we're doing in life, like, you are old, bro.
Right. Nate Pergazzi has a great little bit about hanging out, because Nate, when he did this bit, was like 44, and he was talking about hanging out with a 25-year-old, where he's like, we're just a bunch of young dudes, and who's this 47-year-old over here? Go out of here, old man. Like, I was just hanging out with some dirt bike dude on one of my trails, and he had to be 20-something, and I felt like we were just two dudes hanging out, but I probably could be his father, yes.
Yeah, you don't really think about it in those social settings, I think. So I think that's a good thing, though. They say, like, oh, yeah, Steve's an older guy, Nick's an older guy, but they're so young at heart. And, like, you wouldn't know they were that old.
Right. And occasionally my kids do either use slang or something where it makes me feel slightly older. But the thing I don't feel like I have to struggle with is young, woke, quote-unquote, progressive politics. That, my kids pretty much line up with my politics and my views on the world. And that may be because they are my kids. But this is a common thing people are dealing with, is it not?
Completely. We're at that age now, dude, where if you don't get on where the world is turning into a more open society, it's going to run you over. Jump on, dude. This is the way the world is moving. And if you are not malleable and move with it, then yes, you're going to become that crotchety old bastard on the porch, or it's going to just run you over completely. Baby boomers, I'm talking to you. 1946 to 64 is what a baby boomer is. So 60 years old would be the youngest, right?
Right. I guess the question is, are some of these things worth holding on to, or is it time to move on?
Well, let's see. I came across a list. This has things that older people do despite a woke movement. And I don't even like to call it really a movement. Don't you think it's just like being more aware?
Yeah, I mean, that's always the funny joke, is when they ask conservatives to define woke. They can't, and I struggle with why. I think it's because they realize if they define it, they're going to sound dumb. Because, being woke is just basically being open-minded, maybe a little progressive, believing in science and facts, thinking about how things affect other people. And I think if they define it and say they're against that, they realize that's going to probably not make them look very good.
Yeah, I mean, really, the definition of woke is I'm a good person.
There is some political correctness that I feel probably goes too far, and that you and I, being good woke people, still push back on some political correctness. So I put them in different categories. So that's why I'm curious to see what this list says. Do I agree or do I disagree? As proud, woke, nearly 50-year-old men.
From the list of baby boomers, personal responsibility is on this list, an emphasis on personal responsibility. It says baby boomers often stress personal responsibility and individual merit over collective identity and systematic explanations for social issues. I don't even quite understand what they're trying to say there.
Oh, boy. Was this written by someone age 89 or something? I mean, what the hell? Personal accountability. When I was a kid, we were personally accountable, not all these little shits nowadays. Like,
it does seem like a get off my lawn type thing, but do you find any truth in that, dude, that like accountability seems to be not as prevalent?
Well, across the board, I do. I mean, look at some of the older conservative politicians. I don't think there's any accountability going on there.
Fair, dude. Fair.
And yes, I have talked about having some terrible interactions with teenagers nowadays, not so much friends of my kids, but classmates where, no, there's no freaking accountability. where authoritarian, a principal or a teacher is telling them, stop doing that or move over here, and they will just not. They don't seem to give a crap. But is that more prevalent now than it was then? I think there was always rebels and slackers, right? Back to the Future, slackers.
Yeah, I would think so. And you bring up a great point, saying maybe it's more of a societal issue now that not really anyone or a larger portion of people are not taking accountability. Forget the age.
Right. And are the boomers taking personal accountability for, I don't know, like radon or racism?
Global warming? Like,
right, yeah. So, okay, I'm already down one on this, negatory.
All right, these are things older people do despite the woke movement, okay? This does sound like a very old writer. Traditional values, okay? What are traditional values? I mean, I know what they are, but like, why we got to follow traditional values?
Well, a lot of traditional values have completely outgrown themselves, like the woman's places in the kitchen, or I don't know, the black man's places on the plantation or something. Like,
right.
How far back are we taking traditional values versus antiquated things?
Many baby boomers hold traditional values regarding family, work ethic, and social norms. That's what they're holding on to, which are all the things that you just mentioned. I mean, social norms, like, yeah, we drink out of the same water fountain now. I suppose. Is that a woke idea? Or, I mean, we're Democrats, so we are with the mindset of progress. We move forward, we make progress. And I guess if you're not into that, then you are latching on to traditional values.
Well, in traditional family, I don't know who uses that phrase other than people that are essentially homophobic. Because what could you possibly be referring to that is not traditional families nowadays?
You know, it's interesting because I hear this from a lot of people online specifically, but they'll be talking about how tired they are of Target with their commercials of, it's a white woman and a black guy, or vice versa as a husband. It's a mixed family. It's, a fat girl in a bathing suit. Like, we've taken it too far. We have.
Some of these models, I do wonder. I was in a Target not too long ago, and yes, they have every body type represented. And I sort of wonder, where do you cross the line between inclusivity and just unattractive visual advertising? Like, there's a reason we usually use attractive people on television or billboards. Like, most people can all agree that someone who looks good it's easier to look at. So I get being inclusive, but I don't know. You can take that too far for sure.
I disagree, dude. I think that having people, look, are we not an obese country? Having people that you can see yourself in, black people will say like, oh, I never saw anyone on TV or,
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like cellulite varicose veins on a bikini model that's balding out of the cotton suit. Like, I know a lot of Americans look like that, but do I want to see that blown up 100 by 100 on the wall in Target when I'm walking around?
Well, you better get used to it, dude. Don't be so shallow about it, okay?
I'm sounding a little boomerish now.
We're going over a list of these baby boomers. They do these things despite the woke movement, and damn it, they won't stop. Political correctness is what's next on the list, and I completely disagree with that right off the bat.
So wait, what are they saying? That they're rejecting political correctness?
Yeah, baby boomers may express skepticism towards the emphasis on political correctness. Okay, so they think things are too politically correct.
To some extent, I do agree with that. I think that we still need to be able to joke about some things or have certain discussions amongst your group of friends or family or whatever, but some of political correctness is correct. You don't need to have derogatory terms for everyone. Maybe some humor is not acceptable on every type of platform. So I don't know. This sounds like an excuse to still be racist is kind of what I'm picking up on whoever wrote this article so far. But political correctness can go too far.
What they're saying mainly is if it stifles free speech and healthy debate, then, you can't do that, dude. Come on, free speech, healthy debate, political correctness.
Mm-hmm. I don't feel like we're on the same page because you and I push back against political correctness in appropriate ways. where it's okay if I make an oral sex joke about two gay guys, if it's in a complimentary or mainstreaming sort of way. It's not okay if you're demonizing the gay guys or making fun of them. But if you're just making it part of the joke that, hey, two gay guys were going to a class about how to give a good oral sex, and that's normalizing and mainstreaming. That's not taking it too far. But if you disguise that as then belittling them with it, then you're just using political correctness as an excuse to be an a-hole.
I think most of the time you could ask yourself, like, if I say that, am I punching down or punching up? You know, like if you're punching down, yeah, you are being a dick and a racist. Like, it is a concept that we will normalize all of these things into discussion. So someone might automatically think like, oh yeah, doing a joke about two gay guys, you know, giving blowing lessons, like you're a dick. No, those are things that happen in this world every day. You're not putting it down. And we do need to get to a place where we can talk about everything just the way it is, dude.
Right. I'm saying if you would make the joke about heterosexuals and not doing it in a demeaning way, why can't you make it about homosexuals? Why can it not be mainstream? I made a comment the other day online that I turned into a meme that thousands of people have seen. And there was a small part of me that was like, wait, this isn't homophobic, is it? You brought up Trump sitting on a piddle pad. And I debunked it. I was saying, no, that's actually not true. There's an explanation for it. So I made a little video of us debunking something that liberals were running with. And that should have made the MAGA people happy. Two liberal dudes called out a liberal myth going on. Yet this one guy was still pissed off at us. And so I said, apparently gay guys are wrong. You can't please an asshole.
Which I think is a great line.
Right. I feel that's mainstreaming things. But yeah, I don't think it's homophobic. But some people said, like, that's homophobic to say that. I'm like, no, gay guys please assholes. So they, like, that's not boogeyman or anything. Like,
it may be crass to be talking about buttholes and assholes or whatever, or pussies or whatever, but it's not homophobic, you know. Like, it's
right.
just.
Well, the crassness is the political correctness part. That may have been inappropriate for me to have made this joke publicly, but it's not homophobic. So that's the side I push back on. It's politically correct. I shouldn't have said it. Like, screw it. It's a funny joke. I was demeaning the MAGA guy, not the two gay guys in this hypothetical scenario.
Yes. I think it's just uncomfortable to mainstream all this stuff, but because people do react like that. But if they really stop and think about it, yeah, you should get on board with, you know, just normalizing this speech because it's who we are as a country. All right, we're going over a list right now. These are things that baby boomers will continue to do despite this woke movement. This has to be an old author. I'm going to look it up. Hard work is on the list.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I know a lot of young people, and that's not a woke thing to, I don't want to work hard anymore. Like, some people are just really getting out of the way of not having a work-life balance. You know what I mean? Like, that's becoming more popular. I don't want to live to work. I want to work to live. People still work hard.
Oh, of course, yeah. I think this guy wrote this article on his front porch with his bathrobe slightly open while yelling at kids on the street.
Yes, I think so, too. He writes, baby boomers often value hard work, achievement, and individual success. They may critique this woke culture if they perceive it is advocating for equality over working hard.
Yeah, listen, there's always been slackers. There's always been parts of every generation that some work harder than others. But you're right. There is more of a redefined thing nowadays, like where maybe we should only be working 4 days a week. Or maybe, you should be prioritizing your personal mental health over your obsession on work. Like things like that. That doesn't mean you're not a hard worker. Some other idiot in one of our comments said something about one of my common retorts when somebody's just a crotchety old man, when they say something just lame. I will often say, like, boy, you must be fun at parties, right? You're Debbie Downer, basically.
Sure.
And this guy responded, like, I work hard, so I don't have time to go to parties like the rest of you. And I was like, yeah, none of us work hard. None of us ever have a balance. You're right. You're the only one working hard here. Good. Kudos to you.
And that was a great comeback. I mean, come on, dude. You know you get what I'm trying to say. Like, you must be fun at parties. Like, what a douche.
Right. Yes.
We're going over things that baby boomers continue to do despite a woke movement. Critique of identity politics. Baby boomers may challenge the emphasis on identity politics within woke culture, arguing that if it can lead to division rather than unity among different groups.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Not totally sure what the point is there. There's always been identity politics going back to the founding fathers, whether it's based on religion, ethnicity, or anything else. Again, this is just somebody who doesn't like current identity politics being about gay people or minorities or something like.
Yeah, critical race theory. A lot of baby boomers you'll hear say, like, it just makes things more racist. Like, we don't have to put that in our schools. Like, identity politics are a real thing, dude, because, they happen to certain people,
And there's so much boogeyman stuff going on here because, like we said earlier, most conservatives can't define what woke even means. And the same with CRT, critical race theory. Like, what is that? And what school do you think is teaching that? There is no like CRT handbook that's being sent out around the country. You just don't like that they're teaching that some of our ancestors owned slaves or were part of the KKK or something or fought in the German army. They were Nazis. And now they're like, it's just an excuse to push back on bullshit you don't like about your past.
Yes. Just seems like such a list from such old people. I mean, I'm picturing real old people, but I guess baby boomers can be old,
Right. That's what I'm saying. We're not old. Articles like this make me feel like we're still pretty young and hip and progressive. So
yeah, this is Clint Eastwood, Gran Torino old,
right. Yes.
Defense of free speech. Baby boomers emphasize the importance of free speech and may critique woke culture for fostering a climate of censorship or self-censorship. It's just called being a good person, dude. Like, self-censoring yourself is an important thing at work. Why wouldn't it be in this world in personal situations?
Again, I just see some old man like, how come these black rappers can call each other the N-word and I can't use that anymore? Why am I being censored? Damn it. When I was a kid, we called everyone retarded. Why is that bad now?
Yes. Yes. Close your robe, Grandpa.
I'm going to balance this out, by the way, because I've got some stuff that the older generation is holding on to that it's not woke-centric, and I think some of this we may agree with. And I will tell you, too, I almost feel like, I've discussed on the show before, I've moved to northern Nevada. I'm in a red area, and I feel like I live in a retirement community. I may be the youngest person in this entire town because there are old people all over this community, and they mainly seem to be assholes. I'm getting the bird from elderly women on the roadways and people cutting me off in the grocery store. And
wow.
It's being old does not make you some nice old person per se. I know that's the caricature, but it really depends how you were raised, where you live, and all that stuff. Because there's some of these old people I'm about to punch in their freaking gizzard,
Yeah, to be so crotchety. I don't know. I guess that makes sense because you are in a MAGA area, right? I have a lot of people in my life that are Democrats and old, and they don't act that way.
Yeah, well, that probably tells you something. Democrats tend to understand the concept of empathy and science and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think there's an assertion or an assumption that if you're old, you must have wisdom, but it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah, 100%. As we go over a list of these are things baby boomers do despite the woke movement, as this article refers to it. Experience-based wisdom. Baby boomers often draw on their life experience and historical perspectives to critique aspects of woke culture. They say that you guys are lacking context and historical understanding. Trust me, I have experience-based wisdom.
Well, they clearly don't. And that was the point I was literally just making. That just being alive for 80 or 90 years, you should learn a lot, but not if you're stuck in your same little, rotted ways or, the same group of people, same little small town. If you've never left a conservative area, if you think San Francisco is a hellhole, but you've never been there.
Yeah.
I don't know that age always does equal wisdom.
No, it doesn't.
It equals experiences. That doesn't mean wisdom. I've been debating with a lot of people online who are clearly well-read, but if you're reading garbage, you're spitting out garbage. In other words, knowledge does not always equal wisdom.
Ah, very wise of you to say such a great thing, Stephen.
Yes.
Also, he who stand on toilet, high on pot. Remember that.
Okay. Right. He who fart in church has to sit in their own pew.
Yes, they do. These are things that baby boomers just keep doing despite this woke movement. Promotion of individualism. Wow.
I have the right to use the N-word. Again, I just feel like that's all what this is.
I couldn't agree with you more, dude.
I mean, nowadays we have more discussions. Things are more open. And there are more ideas being brought to the table. That's a good thing. Doesn't mean they're all good ideas, obviously.
No, but to have options of moving forward with progress is not a bad thing. The next one talks about traditional institutions. We're talking about marriage, family, religion, patriotism, stuff like that. Like, you are seeing some changes in this so-called woke movement of people being like, oh, just because this is what's been happening for years, I'm 20, I'll go find somebody to knock me up and I'll take care of my kids and I'll be a good wife. Like, just because that's changing doesn't mean it's a bad thing, dude. You could still do those old things, but accept that other people are going to do different.
Yeah, a lot of this is just the clock moving forward. You know, they talk a lot about how 20-somethings aren't having as many kids nowadays as the previous generations, as certainly the boomers, the baby boomers. I mean, it's literally what the generation's named after. And there's some weird conservative assumption out there that it's because there's like more gay people or something, and which is not true. But I think a lot of women, when they get more education and more exposure to things in the world because they're on social media, they may think like, you know what? I don't want to have a baby at 22 or 28. Maybe I want to live life. Maybe I want to get a college education and go have a career. Like, those aren't bad things. It's just a sign of the times.
Listen, dude, there's people out there that I know women that just, they don't want kids. They don't want kids. And that's okay, dude. I don't understand what the big deal is. Well, oh, they're not having kids anymore. We'll be fine. I promise you we'll be fine. But yeah, these are those traditional institutions that people are moving away from. Marriage. Well, you think, oh, you were raised, you're a teenager now, and you know the stat that 50-some% of all marriages end in divorce. Right. Oh, you're learning from my mistakes, and I would like to hold you down. You will get married. Like, no, people don't want to do it.
Yeah. No, maybe perceptions have changed based on good reasons. I think it's Bill Burr, comedian, has a great bit about, 50% of marriages and divorce. What if I took you skydiving and said that 50% of the parachutes won't work? Would you still jump out of the plane?
Yeah, completely.
So,
no,
and by the way, my firstborn is sticking to the fact that they don't want to have kids. So I find that a little ironic, but yeah,
It's fine, though, because you know what? If you don't necessarily want to be a mother or a father, like, why would I force you? Because you're probably going to be terrible and hate it and resent the kid and everything. Like, just let people be who they want to be.
Exactly. These people will not be good parents. So, yeah, maybe let them go. It's kind of like that old trope about people use abortion as birth control. Like, some women are just having 10, 20 abortions. Like, first of all, that's a myth. But secondly, let's just say that was true. Do you think that person would be a good mother? I'd let them have 20 abortions and ruin their internal organs. Like, you don't want that person having a kid if that's what they're doing for abortion, for birth control.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to think about the other side of the child being born. This is a whole list of things that baby boomers continue to do despite a woke movement. This is the last one I'll close with. Concerns about overreach. Baby boomers express concerns about perceived overreach of woke culture in areas such as education, media, and corporate policies. They think wokeness is moving into too many facets of our life.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're wrong. I may reach over the divide at Cracker Barrel next time I'm there and smack some of these old people into the modern day.
Yeah.
Again, we have more media nowadays. We have more correspondence and commentary. So, of course, you're going to hear more opinions, more diversity. Like, these are good things. There's still your Fox News. There's still people with other antiquated notions. That's all still out there, I promise.
And you can continue to do what you're doing. That's the great thing, right?
Yes. And do it at my grocery store and annoy the crap out of me. Let's see if we can flip this slightly. I have a list of the old-fashioned beliefs that boomers cling to, but this article says is actually harmful. So this is an author that's saying some of these boomer things they think are harmful, but I don't think it's going to be on the same sort of metrics here. So
I hope not, dude. I never want to see an article from that author again.
we'll screen that next time. So the concept here, again, this is something that these are old-fashioned beliefs that boomers are hanging on to, but are they harmful? Just work hard and success will come. My dad did teach me, do what you love and the money will follow. And I've said on the show many a time that I am doing what I'm loving, but I'm still looking for that money. So,
Right.
you know, I struggle with my kids. Do you do what you love and hope the money follows? Or do you do some job that's guaranteeing you money so that you can go then do what you love? You can go ride your dirt bikes or ski or whatever because you got some money to do it.
I think it comes back to your external wisdom. I think you got to find balance in it, dude. I mean, I think that you have to have a job that's going to pay the bills, but hopefully you could get one that you also somewhat enjoy at the very least, you know?
I completely agree. I think balance is actually the right answer on that. You know, chase your dreams. I chased my dreams of being a rock star when I was young, and my firstborn's out chasing dreams of being a Broadway star. And I would never discourage anyone from doing that, but be practical about it. You know, I sort of set aside ages about 18 to 24 to go chase my dream. And I always had a backup plan. And do you know what my backup plan was?
Porn.
No, I probably could have done all that. No, radio. Like, this is my backup plan that I'm living, you know, 27 years on the radio and now podcasting, basically the same thing. Like, this was my backup plan. So I had that in place. And when I realized being a rock star wasn't what I actually wanted, and it wasn't for lack of, like, success or writing good records or whatever, like, I just realized that lifestyle of traveling, never being home, you're in a van or a bus with the same dude. Like, I just realized that was the life I wanted.
Wasn't as romantic as you may have thought it was as a teenager, you know?
Right. So I had a backup plan in place and I implemented it. But I also have told my kids a lot that there are so many slackers in this world that don't work hard and don't show up to work. Like, if you to show up and put some minimal amount of effort in, you will rise to the top. You know, this notion of work hard and the success will come, I would argue probably in 90% of, you know, career professions out there, it probably is true. Just work hard, show up, do a little bit above and beyond, and it probably will pay off for you. So I don't know that I would shoot that down, really.
So funny, dude. My brother always says this to me. He always says, you've been really good to radio. Radio has not been so good to you. And, you know, which is, I mean, is true on a lot of levels. Like, this is a hard profession. So, yeah, I did find some balance in my choice, I suppose, that I enjoy it enough that I'm willing to go through the hurdles that this profession brings, but I can still make money, you know?
And we weren't unaware of it, by the way. I mean, I do complain about the lack of job stability and all that stuff. But I remember in broadcasting school, one of the things they taught us was you're not a real DJ till you've been fired. Yeah. And I don't think they would tell that to doctors or something, you know. But in the world of radio that we've gone into, it's common. You can be fired for your own fault, but often it's just a format changes or, yeah, you've been on the radio for 10 years. We just want somebody new, something different. So goodbye.
Happens real quick, sometimes even without explanation. And yeah, it's a tough one, but you're right, dude. When I was in broadcasting school, they started saying that. And at the time, I loved it enough that I was like, challenge accepted, dude. Come on.
Yes, exactly. All right, so these are some old-fashioned beliefs that boomers are clinging to, but are they harmful? Mental health is not a real issue. So I would agree that a lot of older generation are clinging to that, but this is clearly a toxic thing to say that therapy is for the weak or whatever. Like, come on.
It is so toxic, dude, and it's changing. You know, that's one thing that I love to see Kamala talking about is the fact that, you know what, we should all be treating our minds like any other part of the body that we would go get, you know, care for if something wasn't right. Like, yeah, dude, that needs to be put out here. Look how many suicides are happening in this day and age. And it's because I think so many times that stuff has been suppressed of like, don't go get help, you weak bastard. Like, you could just talk to me.
Yeah, I think there's a reason that therapy is covered under most health insurance plans because, yeah, it is part of your overall health and your mindset can drastically affect your actual physical health. if you're pessimistic and whatnot. I mean, I have seen surveys that are done very credibly that show that people recovering from surgery that pray have a quicker turnaround. They recover quicker and usually have more healthy outcomes. It's not because God is helping your wounds heal from surgery. It's because you have a positive attitude. You're projecting and channeling positive energy. So whether you're getting that from God or just good therapeutic mindset, like, yes, your mental health can affect physical health. And it affects your gut health a lot, which then ripples in the rest of your body. Like, it's a real thing.
I don't want to be crazy and say this is a blanket statement, so it's not. But let me explain. I have MS, and I know that I'm on a lot of message boards for, like, not necessarily support groups, but I guess it is kind of a support group because it's a Facebook group or whatever. And people that are experiencing MS will talk like, oh, I have this going on right now. Anybody got any recommendations? And I can always tell the way that somebody writes about their situation. If it's positive and it's not, you're not ducking your head in the sand, but if you're positive about what's going on, I constantly see people in better health. And I'm not saying it's your fault or anything, but when you're positive, it changes everything about your life, physical, mental, well-being, all of the above.
Yeah, for sure. I would encourage everyone to casually advocate for that. I do something with my kids that you and I do on this show, and I don't think we consciously did it. I know we've never discussed it, but I will just, in a very casual way, tell my kids, like, I got therapy tomorrow at noon, and then I got to run to the store, so I'll pick you up. I just casually mention being in therapy, and you and I both do it on the show. And I think that helps take that stigma down. Yeah. You don't have to be some crazy person to be in therapy, that it's just a normal thing. Just like I would say I'm going to the dentist tomorrow, I casually would say I'm going to therapy tomorrow.
I think it's funny, dude, because I mention that because I do think it's important to normalize those conversations of, telling people that you talk to, like, yeah, I have therapy tomorrow, or even showing somebody that you were able to figure something out in therapy. I've had a couple of people that are older, baby boomer age, come to me and ask me, so what is therapy like? Obviously struggling on whether or not, hey, maybe it can help me, but they've come to me and asked me like a little bit about it and everything else. So yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah. I will tell you, I won't get too into it, but, my son is a teenager and he's having some high school issues, and I encouraged him to get into some therapy and, go sit down and talk with someone, and he has. And his first session, he came home and he was like, that's not what I thought therapy was. I thought they were just going to tell me what to do, like judge me and criticize me and tell me what to do. Like, this person just kind of listened to me and offered some advice, but they didn't tell me what to do.
Interesting. Isn't that funny? And I mean, you're talking about a younger person who has been in a world where it's been more acceptable. Right. So imagine the people that are, in their 50s or 60s that have never been to therapy, what they must think.
Yeah. And on that side of it, I found this to be a very good litmus test on my dating apps. In this last 5 years where I've been out dating, I at first shied away from ever telling someone on a first or second date or something I'm in therapy. By the end of it, I was putting it on my dating profile. Like, got therapy on Wednesday. A therapist thinks I'm doing a great job with this, that, or the other thing. And if anyone pushed back on that, that's a red flag. But I was so impressed with how many women would tell me, like, you're in therapy? Oh my gosh, that is such a turn on. You're a man willing to work on yourself and work on your issues. I've been dealing with this, my ex-husband, he would never admit flight, so actually, it can be a bonding point.
Yeah, maybe get you a little poon,
right.
Dude. When we were kids, think about this. When we heard about quack or you lay down on a couch, like you were crazy if you went to talk to somebody. That's the way things were perceived when we were kids.
Yep, absolutely. So yes, I'm glad we're part of pushing back on that.
Yeah.
Continuing old-fashioned beliefs that boomers are clinging to, but they're actually pretty toxic. College is the only path to success. That is an old school philosophy. And what are your thoughts on that, Nick?
You know what? I went to broadcasting school. I didn't go to a 4-year university. I've always felt this way. We are in a place in time where we are seeing a dip in the trade whether it's carpenter or, just trades in general. And I think it is a good idea for people to understand that, oh, yeah, I could go do a trade. I don't think you have to go to college.
No, it has become almost a Ponzi scheme, a scam or something with colleges, because there was an era where, yes, I think a college degree was necessary, and the more elite the college, the better. But as I've told my kids, if you're going into a profession that needs a college degree, go to a 4-year college. But don't think that you need to be in Harvard or Yale. No one gives a crap. On that first job, they want to see on your resume, you graduated a 4-year college, you stuck to it, you got a degree, you made it into the real world. After your first job, no one gives a crap what college you went to. It's all about real world experience at that point.
Yeah, unless it's a doctor or a lawyer, that stuff doesn't seem to matter, dude.
No, and even so much nowadays. Like, I know that if you want to be some top tier lawyer, I get that going to Harvard Law is probably the way to go, but that's a very niche of the law world. Just graduating a law school and being able to pass the bar, because whether you go to a state college or Harvard, you got to pass the same bar exam, right?
Yes, you do. I mean, you'll see that people seem to get put on the top of the resume list of Harvard, or they went to an Ivy League school in law. That's all I can account for. But you can also go to, like state school and do very well as a lawyer.
Of course, it comes down to your experience, your win, your losses, and all that stuff once you get into the real world. And yeah, what you mentioned about trade colleges. I mean, I went to a broadcasting school. It was a 1-year trade school, essentially. And there are so many jobs out there where if you can make 6 figures being a plumber, being a carpenter, and it's rewarding, I think, working with your hands and whatnot. So yeah, I think we put way too much emphasis on going to some elite 4-year college for everyone. There's a whole bunch of jobs out there that you don't need a college at all, but you do need something after high school. So if you want to be a plumber, go to a trade school. Yeah. If you want to be radio, TV, whatever, find the school that is specialized for that.
Yeah. Continuing education is important throughout your whole life, really, but you don't have to go do something just to get a piece of paper per se.
Right. Next one on the list is tied into that. And I don't know, I think you and I have maybe struggled with this a little bit. Old-fashioned beliefs that boomers are clinging to, but are actually toxic. Stick with one job until you retire. This is a tough one. I have always had a lot of admiration for people that have careers versus a job. I don't mean to pick on my sisters, but they both had jobs their entire adult life. I can't tell you what their career is because they don't have one. They've had jobs. And, they're paying their bills, whatever, that's admirable. But I have a certain amount of respect for somebody who says, I want to be a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, a plumber, or whatever, and you do it. And you do 20, 30 years, and you learn it and master it and grow up through the ranks. Like, I still do have some respect for that.
I do, too. You and I have done a lot of that. Most of the places that we've been at in our career, we've stayed for long chunks of time. And I think there is something respectable about that. I guess I don't have any issues as long as you're taking care of your business, whether you work here or work there. I have a certain romantic idea of just like, if I would have never got married, like I would have been a guy just like traveling across the, country. Maybe I'll stay in this town for 3 months and work on the farm, and then I'll move on to New York. Like, I can see some of that as being romantic. So I don't think it matters one way or another, but I have chose to do it this way. Long time career.
Yeah. There is a whole new thing where nowadays where some, kids are working for some architecture firm where like, oh, you're going to be an architect. That's your career. But then 5 years later, like, screw it, I'm going to go do something different.
Yeah.
There's something about that I admire. But yeah, I do have this, like, you're supposed to stick to a career, become a professional at it.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, there is a whole discussion about around age 50. Is it okay to start over, to start a new career? And I have struggled with that. We're like, no, I've been in radio for almost 30 years. This is what I do. I have to stick with it. But also, I've been in radio for almost 30 years. I can retire with pride that I've done all of these years. You can't take that away from my resume and my life experience. So is it terrible to start some other career? Because I still got 10, 20 years of working under my belt easily.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, dude. I think it can be really hard. Like you get 50 and you're like, oh, now I got to think about act 2. Like it was hard enough the first time doing this. Like it's really stunted me as I'm going through it right now in certain aspects of my life where I'm like, do I continue to do this and only this? And it's tough, dude. But I do feel good about kids trying different things or young people. And yeah, 5 years doing this. Oh, yeah, I want to keep living and experience some other things. So I'm going to go do this. As long as you're taking care of your business, who cares, dude?
Right. My therapist, who I bring up all the time, she was a high school gym teacher for like 20 years. And then in her late 40s, she decided, I want to be a therapist. And she went to school for it and now has several years under her belt. And she's a great therapist. And she always says, like, I'm proud of what I did being a teacher, but boy, if I had never had the courage to kind of reboot and do a whole new thing, like I would be denying myself this great life I'm now living.
It's very admirable. Like I said, it's not easy to find that act 2. So bravo.
And again, similar topic here to things boomers are clinging on to, but could be toxic, that money can buy happiness. I struggle a lot with this concept.
You do.
I mean, the Everclear song, anyone who says money is the root of all evil has never experienced the joy of a welfare Christmas. I think it's easy when you have money to say that money is the root of all evil. But boy, money can really solve a lot of problems. It's not fun being in debt. It's not fun not being able to take vacations or buy a guitar or a dirt bike. Like, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy a dirt bike, and that's the next best thing. I see that in my dirt bike forums all the time, So yeah, I get the concept that you shouldn't just fixate on money, but it's pretty arrogant to say that, money is the root of all evil.
It's funny because, dude, obviously money can create and put you in some bad situations. But being poor, I grew up poor, and I can tell you that having a little bit of money sure does make life easier and a little bit better. But if you're not happy at your core, obviously, nothing's going to make you happy. It'll just make it easier. Temporary happiness. Shopping therapy. Like, you could do that kind of shit. But to be truly happy, yeah, you got to be happy at your core.
Listen, I've seen and heard of all sorts of rich people that are not happy with their lives and are living shallow existences and whatnot. But is it really the money, or is it how you were raised, or some other moral principle that has allowed you to take that money and still have no happiness, no joy? Because obviously you could take that money and start doing charitable work with it or doing something else. You don't have to be a real housewife or whatever.
There's a statistic. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's very high, and it's of people who have won the lottery. It's a very high percentage of people who have won the lottery that said, if I could go back in time and not win the lottery, I would.
I've seen that. I used to work with a financial guru who worked with a lot of lottery winners, and she said, like, it's not so much the money that caused them the problems, it's they don't know what to do with it. They didn't invest it, or they told everyone they have it and now everyone's coming after them, or they just spend it like one big paycheck and then they run out of it. And so now they're in debt because they bought some huge house that they can no longer afford. And is it really the money, or is it that you were stupid with the money?
I mean, you got to take accountability, I guess, but can you imagine the drug that much money would be?
I can, and I think I'd be just fine with it. I really do.
All right.
Like, I don't think if I won the lottery, I would not live some decadent lifestyle. But to know that my bills are paid for the next 50 years and I can pay my kids' college tuition, those things would, of course, be a huge stress reliever. So I think it goes back to balance. If you balance having money, then no, it's not the root of all evil, and it can solve a lot of problems.
Sure. I think that's right.
How about this one? A boomer belief that is harmful. If you can't take the heat, then get out of the kitchen. This tough love approach ignores the importance of empathy and support. It creates a dismissive attitude towards struggling in high-stress environments. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen then.
Look, there's a time and a place for empathy and sympathy. And there is a time and a place that if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen, dude. We're working here. We're doing shit. You know?
I think I'm going to agree with this one as far as it still being an okay thing. Like if you can't take the heat, then get out of the kitchen. If you can't handle the job you're doing, you can't handle the relationship you're in, like, yeah, either get proactive and figure out those things or, yeah, give it up. Get the hell out of here. I'm dealing with this with politics right now. Like, if you can't pick a team already, then just get the hell out of here, man. It's too much stress. I don't like either side. I don't know what the right and wrong. And then you blah, 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 blah. Hey, get the hell out of the kitchen. Let the rest of us solve it. And the same in the work world. Like, oh, I got to clean all these dishes or I got to do all this paperwork. Like, dude, suck it up already. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I'll follow you out of the kitchen and have a conversation if you need to talk to somebody. But if you can't do the job, I'm not going to let that affect me. Move.
No, I agree with that one.
We're old.
How about this one? Save face and keep problems private. Boomers often value privacy over sharing personal challenges. But today, openness fosters connection and mental health awareness. I was going to say, this I think goes back to the being anti-therapy of just holding on to your problems.
Yeah. Obviously, we on this show disagree with that. And I'm a huge believer, dude. I mean, I know there are people out there that are a little more private or whatever. But yeah, I do think it fosters connections with people when I can truly get to know you and you show me a bit of vulnerability.
Exactly. I think showing some vulnerability is a bonding point. And if someone's going to judge you because you've shared something vulnerable, then they're not a good person. But there's been multiple times in my life, but I will tell you, especially my relationship with Kennedy, where I have shared things that are very vulnerable. And the first thing she says is like, boy, I really admire how vulnerable you were to be able to confess that to me. Like just being vulnerable wins you points.
Yes, dude. People connect with it. They like it. They respect it. When we were growing up, you used to hear all the time like, oh, that's Steve. He wears his heart on his sleeve. And that's kind of what it meant. Like he'll have those conversations with you of like, you know, he'll tell you he loves you. He's not afraid to talk about things that are going on. I just think it's a nice way to interact with people. Makes relationships a little more valuable to me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know anyone who hasn't had setbacks or screw ups or whatever it is. So, yeah, I would encourage people not to hold it all in. That's how you give yourselves ulcers and stress and everything else. So.
You know, it's funny because when Rachel goes in front of a jury, a lot of the time she'll be to an appropriate level self-deprecating, and people eat that up as far as like, oh, I don't have to view you as this perfect person telling me what to do. Like, you're just like me. You have hard life. You make mistakes. Like, people, that's endearing.
Absolutely. That's another thing we were taught in radio and do on this very show, that if you tell people real things about you, the vulnerable, the funny, the good, the bad, like it's a bonding point. You're now a real person. They can relate to you in certain ways, even if the struggles were different or the jokes or whatever. Like it still makes you a real person, and that's how you're relatable.
Yes, for sure.
I had a teacher in broadcasting school that always slipped little anecdotes in. And then at the end of the class, when we got at the end of the semester, he was like, you know, what's my dog's name? What color is my beat up old car? And all of these things. And we all knew the answers. And he was like, I have intentionally been slipping these things in throughout the class because you've held on to it. It made you feel like you knew me.
Yeah. Isn't that a great experiment?
Mm-hmm. Moving down, old-fashioned beliefs that boomers cling to. I mean, this one might be easier for boomers to cling to because it's got an age limit on it. So you should be able to buy a house by age 30. So, I mean, if you're a boomer, you're obviously way over the age of 30. So you're just kind of looking down your nose at kids that can't afford it. But the housing market today is not what it used to be. There was an era where you could work full time on minimum wage and afford a 2-bedroom house or whatever. But man, the real estate market nowadays is not affordable, especially for the entry level. If you're in the game and you can sell one property to get to another, that's a whole different thing. But the first house, oof.
Yeah, it's rough and tough. That's why I'm voting for Kamala Harris, because she's going to help people get into homes. My niece, who is 20 years old, just got accepted for her first apartment, and the rental market is crazy too. She got a 1-bedroom apartment. It's 600 square feet, and it's out in like Maple Valley, out in the boonies, right? Yeah. $19.80 a month.
Wow. This is what I'm talking about. I mean, prices are just outrageous. There's some levels where renting is actually a little more a higher bar, because if you need a mortgage, you're actually probably paying less per month than a renter would. But yeah, it's coming in with that down payment and stuff. And yeah, the era where you could come up with 20 grand for a down payment, that doesn't exist anywhere. It's 20% now. And with most houses costing $500,000 to $1 million in a lot of states in this country, I mean, that's $100 grand you got to come up with.
Yes.
I don't know how you're saving that up unless you inherited it, or like I said, you can sell some other property. So no, that's a really tough game and very judgmental. If a boomer's like, "Oh, you're 31 and you don't own a home," like, yeah, you're out of touch then.
Those boomers don't understand the term like van life. Like these kids are finding places to live, like their car, because things are so expensive. So that's a little judgmental.
It's similar on this one too. I hear this a lot and I push back on it a lot. Technology ruins everything is what the boomers would say. I hear everyone's on their screens all the time now. And I've shared it with you, but I have this old picture from the early 1900s that I love to share online when anyone says everyone's on their screens nowadays. It's a picture of an old train car, and everyone on the train car is reading a newspaper. Everyone's always had their faces buried in a newspaper. Then is what social media is now. It's news, it's entertainment, it's comics and crossword puzzles and horoscopes. That's what social media is. So everyone's always had their face buried in their little escape from life or their way that they're getting information.
Yes, I agree with you on one level. But if you look back to when we were kids, kids are growing up differently because they are on phones all the time. And we were outside doing playing war.
Sure.
So I think it is changing for this generation. You mentioned in our last episode about this is all some kids know as far as politics. This is all they know. And it's the same for kids in social media, electronics. I know what life is like without an internet or without a cell phone. A lot of kids won't, and that does change things.
I mean, it's a sign of the times. Technology is everywhere. Tablets and phones are everywhere. If you go to get a job at a restaurant and you don't know how to work that little touchscreen tablet that you're ringing everything up on and doing the tips on, that would be weird. You'd be in a hole if you don't understand how to use some of this technology.
It's been a theme as of late. We've been saying it a lot. If you don't want to get on the train, you're going to get run over. So I guess it's up to you.
Yeah. I mean, my dad is a surgeon, and in recent years, the robotic surgery has become a big thing where they remote control some precision little thing that can do a little incision and get inside and do a biopsy or remove a tumor or whatever it is. And my dad had told me that he struggled greatly with the idea of controlling something on a screen that is doing something elsewhere. Whereas he said the younger docs, they get it immediately because they grew up playing video games.
Yeah, isn't that something, dude? We experienced the same thing in radio, when digital audio recording became a thing, older people were like, what is this?
Like I said, it's a sign of the times. It's somewhat naive to just say that just because something is new, that it has to be bad. The last one I'll throw out here on the list, that the old-fashioned beliefs that boomers are clinging to that are harmful today, we're guilty of this. Every generation is. Everything was better back then. You just said it. When we were growing up, we were outside playing war or whatever. The boomers will say that's a wussy game you're playing. I was actually in a war when I was growing up. And everyone has a rosy perception of the way things used to be, forgetting the fact that in that era, there may have been racism, sexism, a woman couldn't vote. We didn't have a cure for polio or smallpox. Or you only focus on the rosy stuff. So of course you think everything used to be better.
It's easy to romanticize your past, dude. We drank out of the garden hose, didn't come home till the street lights were on. Kids were getting kidnapped, and we had lead in the water. We don't think about that stuff. That's true.
Right. Homes were so much more affordable back then. Yeah, they also were filled with asbestos. So sometimes things